Are we? Okay. My name is Shereen Fuqua, and I have a company, GumBits. We develop, it's the official USEF horse treat, and it's called Chewing Gum for Horses. And I am interviewing really interesting people, all different kinds of horse people that use gum bits. And today I have Marin, is it McKee? McKee.
Yes.
Because you won't believe this, but my grandmother, my mother's mother, her main name is McGee. So when I saw your name, I was like, oh, similar to my mom's side of the family. Yeah. But anyways, so you contacted me about 2 years ago. You sent me a note and said that you show in Arab horses. And yes, you also live in Washington, which I was a little confused. And we're going to get into your story because you show a lot in Canada, I believe. Are you in Spokane, Washington?
Yes, I live in Spokane. Yes. And then my horse, my trainer, she lives in Oregon. So I kind of go between Spokane and Oregon during the summer, taking lessons and things like that. And then I show a lot of different places, Washington, Oregon, Idaho. And then I go up to Canada every once in a while for nationals up there.
So. Well, let's start. You have been riding for how long, and how did you get into the horses?
I've been riding for probably 12, 13 years, I want to say, I believe, something like that. But one of my friends in my kindergarten class, I believe, she rode with this trainer and she invited me to go down with her on a day she had a lesson. And so I went with her and I just instantly fell in love with Arabs. And ever since that day, I was begging my mom to go take me to take a lesson. And then it took about probably 2 weeks. And then after that, she was like, okay, fine. And so we went, I took a lesson.
What grade were you in then when you?
I was in preschool because I was in
so you were really young. Yes.
Yeah. And I just kept begging. And then as soon as I got on that horse, I just fell in love. And then I think about 2 years later is when I actually started showing. So, yeah.
2 years later. So you were in like first grade.
Yeah. Yeah.
That sounds a little bit like my daughter, Kat, and you've been doing it ever since. And are you in high school now?
Yes, I am in high school, but I do running start. So I take classes through our university. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, tell me about your journey. Tell me, how many horses did you learn how to ride on, and how did you get into showing? And I do want to say the Arab horses are so beautiful. I didn't start riding myself until I was, this is shocking, my mid-30s. And I learned how to ride on a beautiful Arab gray horse with a really gypsy face. They are gorgeous.
Yeah. So when I started, I just started on like a bunch of old retired show horses. So I kind of already started like the fundamentals and then already started the showing aspect of it, but just locally. And then about 2 years after I started riding, I attended my first show, and it was just a B show. So it was really small. And I did just lead line. And the first horse, I believe her name was Mai, is what she was called. And she's who I took a majority of my lessons on when I was learning. And then after that, I got my first horse named Ambrosia, and she was a purebred Arab. I showed her for about a year in walk trot, and then she suffered a suspensory ligament injury in
Yes.
pasture. And so after that, were never able to get her back to like full capacity. So she just became a show horse or a pasture horse. And a lot of like my cousins and stuff would just learn like how to handle horses just around her, because she was really good with kids and she really enjoyed that aspect of it. And so since I couldn't show her anymore, I showed my trainer's horse at the time. And so I would just kind of show like different horses that she was bringing. And then eventually I ended up getting another one of my horses who was a Western Pleasure horse. And so I showed her Western Pleasure for a couple of years. And then we eventually took her Hunter just because I was more comfortable Hunter, and she did enjoy Hunter and she did have the movement for it. She was a very versatile horse. She could do either. And so I showed her both. And then the horse and I just kind of got to a point where we had both done all we could for each other at that point. So we decided to split ways. And then I got another horse that was a little more challenging for me, just so I could learn more and things like that. And that horse had a bit of like a rocky journey. We started good, but he had been shown for a really long time. And so at one of my last shows with him, he was just kind of done. And you could tell just like when I was riding, he was just like, I don't want to be in the arena anymore. I just want to.
He was maybe a little grumpy, huh?
Yeah, he was very grumpy, and he ended up just like throwing a fit the whole way, the whole class. And so we sold him to, I believe, just a family who just wanted like a pasture pet horse that they could dink around on. It didn't want like any type of like to go show. So it was like a perfect home for him, because he needed just needs a family to just love on him and just dink around and everything like that.
And
so
that's the one thing that I love about the horses. We can show them, but they still offer so much love and
exactly, yeah,
enjoy to other people that, like you said, this family just love to have someone to love on. And so that's so special. I have my retired Grand Prix dressage horse, and can you believe he'll be 30 this year?
Wow.
So
That's
yeah,
impressive.
the horses are just wonderful. We just love them so much. So it's so nice that you found a nice family to take
Yeah.
care of him.
And that was a big thing for us when we were selling him, because we knew showing was just not in his future anymore. And I just knew like if we didn't make sure he was going to just a home to just have a forever home, I didn't want to sell him to that family if that wasn't going to be the case, because I didn't want him to go through that like stress or put anyone like in danger or anything like that. So that was one thing I made sure of before we sold him, is that he was just going to have a forever home there. Yeah. And we sold him my last year of walk trot, so 10 and under. And then when I moved to 13 and under, I actually ended up transferring trainers, simply because I just transferred disciplines from more primary hunter to primarily Western. And so I just went to someone who had more of an interest in it. And she found my current horse, Chuck is what we call him,
Chuck,
but his show name is
okay.
Eros MA. And I showed him Western Pleasure the first year and did a little bit of horsemanship, which is just our like equitation with a pattern and things like that. And then we also take him Hunt Seat Equitation, and I'll take him Hunter Pleasure in the 13 under divisions. And then once I aged to 14 to 18, he's now just a strictly Western Pleasure and does a little bit of Hunt Seat Ec, but not as much as he used to, just because he also suffered a ligament injury in his hind end. And so we just decided to put as little like stress on that as much. So we just limited his classes to Western Pleasure.
And just tell us a little bit about so Western Pleasure, you ride in a Western saddle.
Yes,
And
and
then
we
when you
have,
say Hunt Seat, that then is the English saddle, is that
yes,
correct?
so it's essentially judged pretty similarly to hunter jumper, I believe. It's just on the flat, so it's all like
Okay,
flat groundwork. There's just no jumps.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Like, kind of like dressage, right?
yes, exactly. Yeah,
And all of your horses have been Arab horses?
all of, actually, I think one of my horses was not, I believe she was a quarter horse,
Okay,
but we didn't really show her much. We got her just for just a family horse to like go on trail rides and things like that, so that we had like two, so like my mom and I could go on trail rides, or we could just go ride together and things like that. So she's the
moms
only
are the
one that,
best, we know that.
yes, they are. But I believe she's the only one that we had that was not an Arab, to my knowledge.
So the Arabs is really your passion. You love the
Yes.
Arabs. And then how do you decide now when you go to your shows? How do you go to like a Western show or an English show, or are they in the same showgrounds and then different classes?
So the way our shows are set up is essentially they'll have like 4 days, I believe, is kind of the average, 3 to 4 days. And throughout the show, they have just like every single class. So they'll have Western pleasure, they'll have reining,
Oh,
Hunt Seat
raining is
Equitation.
cool.
They have ranch riding is really popular now. Showmanship, park, country English pleasure, a bunch of different equitation divisions. And then they'll also have Liberty is at a couple of them.
And it's
So it's
so
kind of just everything.
it's so interesting you said that about Liberty, because my last guest was a dressage person who trained herself up to Grand Prix.
Mhm.
I'm trying to figure out where the camera is, so I feel like I'm looking at you. But she does Liberty and trains Liberty, and I never even knew what it was until I talked to her like a week ago.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned before we came online that you do a little bit of Liberty.
Yes, I have before. It's not necessarily like a primary one. I just kind of do it for fun.
Yeah.
The few times I did it with one of my friends, because when we have it set up, we get 2 handlers in the arena. And so I did it with her, I think for 2 or 3 years, just at like one of our local shows, just because it was just a fun class. And
Right.
I had a blast doing it, because when we do it, we get to like dress up, because it's just like there's no points involved for us for at the show we did it at. So we just did it and we like just dressed up and we went all out and we got to play like the best. It was a blast.
That's cool. And
Yeah.
what association, because are you on a committee, a youth committee?
Yes. So I am the Arabian Horse Association, and then in that is the Arabian Horse Youth Association.
Okay.
And I am the vice president for that right now.
Wow.
So I'll travel to Tennessee in March to go to a conference. And then we have a conference in Oklahoma City in July, which will be fun because it's going to be really, really hot there.
Yeah.
But so it's really fun. And then I'm also the Region 5 youth director, which is like my current region right now. And so I help plan the regional show and just create fun activities throughout the year and things like that.
And it's the Arab Horse Association is the name of it?
Yes.
Wow. So you've been doing this basically your whole life.
Yeah.
And do you get voted in?
So for the regional director, you just basically fill out a form, and then the region's board, they'll go through all of the applications and they'll basically pick who they feel can best hold that job. And I have held it for 2 years. The first year I was a co-director with our past director. And this year I'm on my own and I'm going to run again next year. And then for the vice president, so the major board, what we do is we campaign while we're at the conference in Oklahoma, and then they'll just, all of the youth, as long as you're registered as a youth to show, they can vote. And so they'll hear your speech, they'll kind of go around to your posters and things like that. And then at the end of the week, they just put their votes in, and then it's just by choice.
So this is a big national organization, and lots of horses, lots and lots of Arab horses. So I assume they're purebreds and also mixed Arab horses.
We have a lot of purebreds and a lot of half Arabs. But yeah, so, and those classes generally get divided by breed too. So.
And do you have like national championships where people from youths from the different regions have to win their region, and then everyone comes together to compete?
So yes, we do. We have our national shows where you qualify. Our qualification system has recently changed. So it used to be you just had to get a certain amount of points, and then if you made a top 5 in a regional show, or as like a certain amount of top 5s, then you qualified for nationals. And then for the equitation classes at nationals, you had to win like 2 medal classes over the year. But now they've recently changed it, I believe, or it's getting changed to where you just have to attend a certain amount of shows and show in that class to qualify for it.
I think a lot of organizations are starting to change how they do things, of course, with COVID, and making it a little bit easier for people to be able to travel and go to the shows. Yes. But we all want to know, what is the gorgeous ribbons? Or are they like, what is that behind you? Gorgeous.
So this one is my Canadian Nationals walk trot championship. That one I believe is for equitation. Yes, Western Seat Equitation. I won that back in 2016. And that was actually a really interesting, really complicating experience. Because I was originally going to show one of my current trainer's horses for her, and then she ended up having a complication, and so she was unable to compete. And so, but we had already arrived in Canada at that point, and so we were just kind of there for a vacation at this point. But at the trainer next door to us, they had a horse that was qualified for the classes I was going to show in. And so they offered for me to ride that horse. Wow. And so I was able to catch ride. But the funny thing is, before my class, I had only rode the horse once. And so I was going into my first ever nationals class on a horse. This is
your first time you're going in on a horse you rode one time.
And it was really—
Is this an equitation?
So the first class I showed in was Pleasure, so it was judged on the horse. But this one right behind me is my equitation one.
Well,
I got to do a mix of everything.
All those years paid off because
it was
a good position and you got rewarded. And I just love to hear these stories because everything can be so unexpected. And it seems like you were so focused and so determined in your sport and your love for all of your horses you've had over the years. How did you come about meeting me? I mean, I got an email from you talking to me about the GumBits, and I would love to hear it from you direct.
Yeah, so at one of the barns we boarded at, there was actually a hunter jumper there, and she had used GumBits. And my horse at the time, he would get very distracted. And so she was like, here, try these. So she gave us some GumBits, and we gave them to him, and he stayed focused the entire time because he wasn't playing with his bit. So it really helped after that. And so then basically ever since then, we just started buying them because they helped keep my horse's attention so well, especially at shows, because he is very ADHD brained. And so like he sees something and he's like, oh, squirrel. And then I'm like, no, we're in the middle of a pattern. And then he's like, oh, wait, pattern. and then he gets really flustered, and sometimes he'll do like this little like buck fart thing where he farts and then scares himself and bucks. And he does that like pretty much every pattern because he catches his eye on something else, except for when we gave him GumBits. Because when we give him GumBits, he just is more prioritized on that he's like, okay, I'll do whatever you want me to do because I have something keeping me busy.
This is insane. This was absolutely completely not set up. You had sent me an email a couple years ago. Actually, I think your mother,
I think it was my mom.
Yeah, sent me an email just saying how wonderful experience you guys have with the GumBits. But I really didn't understand that it was the focus. And I have had pony mothers come up to me at horse shows and, do you have the GumBits? Do you have the GumBits? Especially when it starts to get like feeding time. Do you notice?
Oh, yeah.
Like dinner time, and all of a sudden they're like, okay, why are we here? We should be back at the barn. We want to eat dinner. Yes. And so I had moms come up to me and swear that it got their horses focused, because I talked to a lot of people where the GumBits relaxes the horse in the jowl, and they can soften in the jowl. And sometimes they're so focused that I kind of hold and get a little tense and get a little grinding. But you are the first person that I've talked to and interviewed that talks about just the focus part.
Yeah. And I believe she interviewed you, or she emailed you right after I went to nationals with my current horse. We went to Canadian nationals again in 2018, and I was showing in Hunt Seat Equitation on the flat, and we gave it to him before that class. And it was the first pattern that he didn't pull any of his normal tricks of getting distracted. So first one, I had complete focus with him. And ever since then, we use it before every single equitation class because it just keeps him focused so he doesn't pull any of that. And after that, I believe is when she emailed you, because I had actually won reserve national champion in that class. Yeah.
That's greght.
And I believe
do you tell anybody, any of your competitors, your secret?
Well, kind of. I always am like open to tell people if they ask, but generally I just kind of keep it with like my close friends and like people in my barn and things like that, because I know other people in my barn have actually asked me for some and I've given it to them, and it's helped their horses tremendously in a similar way. But so I will always tell them like I use GumBits because it helps my horse so much. But if it's someone who is like I'm a tight competitor with, I might gatekeep it a little bit.
I'm gonna make you feel better. I'm gonna make you feel better because we sell GumBits to a big store in Europe, in the UK, and they told me the Olympians that use it for the dressage, but nobody really knows who they are. I know who they are because they give the GumBits to these people, but not everyone wants to know. And the thing is that I really want to get the word out. Using GumBits is more of a treat, and it creates the salivation, and for you it helps with the focus, for some people the softening in the hand. But I had to ask because I was aware that there were some top people in Europe that didn't really want anyone to know they use the GumBits, but we're gonna get the word out, and I'm so happy that you are sharing your story with us. Now, tell me, is that like a reining rope you also have next to you?
This is just like a cow rope. This is actually my mom's.
Okay.
When she was younger, she used to do I think it was team roping, I believe. Just for fun. She just did it at like local rodeos with her buddies and things like that. So that's hers. And I've actually messed around with it a couple times and started roping just like cones, because I also compete on my high school equestrian team.
Okay.
And when I'm there, we have an event called Team Versatility. And one of the events is working rancher. And I actually had to throw a rope off of my Arab at a meet last year. And I had never thrown a rope. My horse had never had a rope thrown off of him. And I was told that I had to do it like 3 hours before. And so I actually used that rope when I did that.
To practice.
Yes. And I broke my horse to that rope, so he got used to it. And I actually, when I roped, we weren't supposed to catch anything, which was the good thing. We were supposed to miss. So I didn't have to worry about that. But I roped and he could care less. He was just like, oh, there's something there. Okay. It just didn't really scare him. And I was like, cool.
Well, you spent a lot of time doing all different, I guess, disciplines, right?
Yeah.
Within the Arab. So what is that, like 4 or 5?
I think I've competed in, let's see, I think I've competed in like 4 different disciplines, I believe. Western pleasure, or just any Western events, really. And then hunt seat, showmanship, so in hand. And then I actually competed a little bit in country, so saddle seat.
Saddle seat. Wow,
Yeah.
that's a lot. And you love the GumBits and you give up to them whatever discipline that you do, I take it.
Yes, especially in my equitation classes for patterns.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I also, outside of Arabs, I do a little bit of quarter horse stuff too.
Okay.
I'm on
like that. I'm trying to
youth-
break into the quarter horses.
Yes.
I have a important phone call to return this week with some big quarter horse people.
Yeah.
That's a big, I don't know who's bigger, the Arabs or the quarter horses.
I honestly would say the quarter horses, because a lot of people in the Arabs, I know quite a few that cross over into the AQHA and things like that. So I honestly would say quarter horses, just because of like that crossover where they get kind of both. But I was introduced to competing with quarter horses through the Youth Equestrian Developmental Association, which is another equestrian team that basically it's structured very much like a college equestrian team, where you go to a meet and then you draw the horse you're going to ride. And you just go in and ride the horse and get judged. You don't get any warm up on the horse. You don't get to you can ask questions about the horse, but that's all you really get. And
so everybody is operating on an even field. They've never sat on the horse that they're assigned.
Mm-hmm. Unless like you've taken lessons on that horse or you've ridden it in the past at other meets and things like that. But so with those, then I'll ride generally 4 different horses in a day, I believe, roughly. Yeah. And it's really levels the playing field. But that's how I got introduced into the Quarter Horse Association too. And that was just recent. That was, I think, last year, a year and a half ago, maybe.
Now, when do you graduate?
I will graduate in 2023.
So next year. So you're a junior?
Yes.
And then are the colleges, I know in the hunter jumper world, the schools go after the hunters to be on a team with some really nice schools. Do they do that as well with the quarter horses or Arabs? Or
yes and no. They'll generally go for more of like a reining background type, or someone who's gone to like worlds and horsemanship and things like that. I've looked at those type of teams and things like that, and I've reached out and I've heard some pretty good things and heard from coaches, and they're really easy to talk to and things like that. But I've definitely looked into it. However, I don't really see myself going to a big college for that. I'll probably go to like a smaller one just because of where I want to go. Like for my future, I want to do more of like equine rehab and things like that. And there's a couple of schools I've looked at that have a good equine like rehab program to help you learn that specific
And is
but also
that
have a good
in your neck of the woods up in the,
no.
no, oh,
That's
I don't know
more
how your
towards the East
mom's gonna
Coast.
feel about that.
She's a little on like the iffy side. She's all for it because she knows I'll enjoy it and it's a great opportunity. But me leaving, she's a little like, I'm not quite sure.
What schools are they that you're looking at?
I've looked at Midway University and I've looked at University of Findlay are like my two
Is
major ones.
Findlay's in Ohio, right?
Yes,
And the other one?
is in Kentucky.
Kentucky.
Yeah.
Oh, if you come to Kentucky, I'll probably get to meet you.
Oh, perfect.
Because we always go to Lexington. So
I think it's like, I want to say it's like 30 minutes an hour outside of Lexington, but I could be wrong on that.
well, either
Yeah.
Ohio or Kentucky, big horse country. And
Exactly. Yeah.
so the rehab you want to do, obviously you're going to meet lots of people and tell them how great the GumBits are.
Yes.
And but the rehab, will it be in the medical side of the rehab, or are you looking at working with horses, maybe bringing them back after some injuries, or what are you
I'm
thinking?
more looking at like after like they've been diagnosed and things like that. So after the injury has occurred and just trying to get them back to where they were.
Oh,
And
so rehab, get
hopefully
back
better.
on them and
Yes.
work them and ride them.
Yes, because
Wow.
when my horse injured himself about 2 years ago now, it was really hard, but that's when I kind of fell in love with like more the rehab type because I got to go to the vet, and the vet I was at, she was very like inclusive, and she showed me like doing the x-rays and things like that and ultrasounds, and she like really was very hands-on and taught me how to kind of get into that. And then I started rehabbing him, and I just fell in love with it because it was like you're basically restarting the horse. Like they have all their fundamentals, but you're rebuilding like every single thing. And it's just like seeing how they went from the first day that they were like getting on, and you were just like, they're crazy. Like there's like, oh, I haven't been ridden in a year. And they're all like, and then going to now I'm showing him, and he's showing better now than he was before the injury because mentally his brain was able to grow up in that time where he was off. And then me helping him rehab, we got like a better connection together. And so now it's easier to read each other. So I can tell whether he's just like blowing me off or I just need to get his attention better and things like that. So it's really, yeah.
So you really are a true horsewoman. Like
yes.
you love your horses.
Mm-hmm.
And take such good care of them. And you've had the ribbons, you've won big championships, you do different disciplines, but it sounds like you have a real love for the horses and the training part.
Yes.
Of the horses.
I love training. I tend to any horse, like any of my friends, they'll always say I'm always out in the barn. If you ask them, always in the barn. They'll ask me to hang out. I'm like, no, I can't. Sorry, I have to go ride. No, I can't. Sorry, I want to go be in the barn instead. I'm always, if you're looking for me, I will most likely be in the barn or doing something relating to a horse. And it's just like because for me, it's kind of like a safe space because horses, they'll always be right there and they'll always have that love for you. So it's just like nice to be able to go out there and always have that and be able to rely on that. And so yeah.
Wow. Your family should be so proud of you. Do you have brothers and sisters?
Yes, I do. I have one older brother.
And is he in horses, or is your father in horses?
Both my dad and my brother, they're not into horses. They are more of the academic type of focus. So they focus more on like that and the chemistry type stuff. And it's actually really fascinating to hear them talk about it because it's so interesting to hear like all of those different, like their passions for that. And so I really enjoy, so yeah.
Wow.
I'm working that right. Yeah.
You are so sharp and just so smart, and you're involved in so many things, the
Mhm.
politics of your organization, the different disciplines, but really at the end of the day, I love the stories of how everybody really, really loves their animals. They love
Yeah.
the horses, and
Mhm.
regardless of the discipline, they love their horses. And
Yeah.
I promote GumBits. It's, anybody, my cat, actually, I hear my cat. I don't know if you could hear my cats meowing. I don't usually have my family home. It's evening here in Atlanta, and I close the door. And of course, if you close the door, the cat wants to come in, right?
Oh yeah,
So,
for sure.
but I did, some people don't really know what the GumBits are. So I
Yeah.
had some GumBits on my desk from my last interview. I don't know if you can see them, but how do
Yeah.
you describe them? And do all
So
your horses eat them up right away, or do you have to mix them with treats?
well, so most of mine do. I do have one that doesn't, but he just is more of like he doesn't really like to take things from your hand just because where he came from, he was more just like, I don't think I'm supposed to take treats like from your hand. So with him, I'll put it like in his grain and then he'll eat it right away. But yeah.
Yeah, and it still carries over the
Yeah.
effect because
Yes.
it does last. And but yeah, so
Mhm.
I have these little bags
Yes.
that I give to USEF events.
Mhm.
Is your organization part of USEF as well?
Yes, we do have
Yeah.
affiliation with USEF.
Okay. I thought so. I wasn't sure. But back to, I went off on a tangent, but yeah, my cat was eating the gumbits today
So
off my desk. I'm like, oh my
I've
God. Like,
actually, this is going to sound a little bit weird, but before my classes at nationals, I would get super nervous. So I actually ate some. I tried some and it helped me focus because it just like, because it gets like, you keep feeling it. And so you just like kept chewing it. And so it kept my mind focused on that instead of worrying about what's about to happen in that show ring. Because at that point, I hadn't got to the understanding of once it's happened, there's no changing it. So you just have to go out there, go into the arena, give it your all, do the best you can with what you have at that moment. And if something happens, it happened, that you can't go back and change it. And so it helped me focus in the moment. And so I actually ate them too. And
there you
I enjoyed it.
go. I know
Yeah.
the pony kids eat the gumbits all the time. At the side of the ring, I catch them eating it, but it's official. We officially help the rider as well as the horse be a champion. And I love that you shared that with me. That's a great story. I was at University of Georgia. They have a big, huge equine department.
Yes.
And if you ever decide maybe at some point in your career to go into the medical field, it's a really good school. And when I was there, I talked to one of the top surgeon, and he brought it up to me that there's this big study on people on chewing,
Yep.
because of the salivation, it creates it gets, I don't know, the hormones, or
Yes.
it does cause relaxation, so you're
Yeah.
not crazy.
Okay.
I just
'Cause
haven't gotten around to reading the studies yet, but
yeah.
I should. But that's a great story. I love that.
I always find myself like, I'm a big gum chewer. I will always be chewing gum, but obviously when you're riding, that's not safe.
Right.
So, and like shows, obviously you can't. And so it helped. So that's why I tried it. Cause I'm like, I need something just to like kind of like distract me and take my mind off of it and just relax. And so that's why I tried it. Cause I was like, it should work. And then I tried it and it worked so well. And I was like, I'm definitely going to use that for shows more often.
I love that. Thank you for sharing your time with me and
Yeah.
all your horses. Do you happen to have any pictures of your horses with you? Or
Not
I will have some that I'm gonna post with this
yes.
video. And I'm so excited that
Yes, I'm excited too.
you guys called me and wanted
Yeah.
to share your story. Please tell your mother I said hello and
I
thank you.
will.
And keep in touch with me when you come to
I will.
Kentucky. Well, you're going to be in Oklahoma and
Tennessee.
was it Arizona, Oklahoma, Arizona? I can't remember. But you have such a big future ahead of you, and
Thank you.
I'm so excited I get to make a little impression with your future and with your horses. And thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And let us know, send us photos, tag us, and let us know, send us videos of you.
Yes.
We love to hear how you're doing. And I can't get over how gorgeous you guys have. Like the best. Are they like flowers behind you? Are they silk flowers?
So these are just like the fake flowers, but it's just like a rose blanket. And then I think it's futurity classes, they do at US Nationals, they'll do real roses that are just white roses.
Oh, that's gorgeous. Well, send me some photos. I want to put it with this post. I really appreciate your time. Yeah. Thank you. And we'll be talking soon.
Yes.
Okay. Bye.
Right. Bye.
I love GumBits because it helps so much with the horse's acceptance of the bit and the bridle for not only the dressage but the jumping as well. My horse Rascal at the time was always chewing on the bridle and chewing the bit, and so I would give it to him every day at home before I put the bridle on, and it really calmed him down and got him to stop chomping on the bit so hard. I use GumBits because it makes the horses so much happier in the mouth and the bridle.